Hello and good morning, and welcome to the ASC web window for cybersecurity. I hope that everyone is joining in now, and we will start with the webinar in some seconds. Today we will discuss about cybersecurity. My colleague Thomas will give you an introduction, what's happened in the market for cybersecurity. And I think that we can start. So please, Thomas, go for it.
Yes, Renee, thank you very much for this introduction. So my name is Thomas Wenzel, and I'm cybersecurity consultant with ASC, and I live in the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So, and welcome everybody to our 20-minute conversation. So please, let's start and look at the background picture. So background picture here on our first slide. You will find really partially the EU flag, not enough stars, but I think you can recognize this as an EU flag. You see the protective shield. The protective shield is behind the EU flag. And you see some of industrial plants left and right from the protective shield. And at the end, if you look really carefully, you will find some, let's say, binary code or let's say automation code. So let's conclude. What are we going to discuss today in this webinar? We discuss new OT cybersecurity requirements and trends. We especially look into the new NIS2 Directive. This is not brand new, but new for many people. And yeah, we are going to discuss this. And it is really important if you are affected or if you fall under this directive that you comply to this NIS2 Directive. And I give you some practical hints and insights how to do so. So again, in a nutshell, that is what we are going to discuss. So our conversation is more or less two main topics. Let's start with the first one, and these are the first 3 points here. So we categorize really the NIS2 Directive, and if applicable means if you fall into this directive, recommendations for being in compliance. So this is the first part of the conversation, and the second part, another cybersecurity and industrial security trend we have seen many times at the last ARIMA fair in June in Frankfurt, the APL, the Advanced Physical Layer. And does this new physical layer, APL, this new physical Ethernet layer, increase the vulnerability of OT networks? Because I discussed in several conversations, hey, if we have more IP addresses in our networks, does this increases the vulnerability of our overall network, and how should we handle that? I'm going to clarify this and yeah, give you some guidance here. And at the end, we have time for question and answers. So if you have a question, you can use the chat functionality and send your question to Renee. He is going to collect these kind of questions in the background. And at the end, depends a little bit on the timing. We try to answer. If we can't answer immediately here, we come back to you via email. Okay, if you want to discuss really with me afterwards, you can contact me by email. My email address is here, or maybe more convenient for you, I have a QR code here, and you connect to my LinkedIn group by this QR code, and you can really establish connectivity to the LinkedIn group, and then then it's really easy for you to establish conversations. Okay, we do not wait too long. Let's start with the first topic, and that is really NIS2. Let's clarify what's NIS2. NIS2 stands for Network and Information Security. It's an EU directive, and you can imagine if there exists a NIS2, a NIS1, or a NIS directive, exist as well, and that's correct. In 2016, let's say this journey on network and information security started, and the NIS2 is simply the update of the directive from 2016. So NIS2, the paper was really published EU-wide end of 2022. That means the EU said end of 2022, yes, we are going to change, let's say, the security landscape, the OT, let's be precise, the OT security landscape, because NIS is focusing on operation technology mainly. And NIS2 expand really the cybersecurity requirements in the EU's and the sanctions, and really sanctions if you fall under this directive, and if you are not comply, then penalties or sanctions may happen. So you have to handle that carefully. And overall, this new directive should harmonize the EU security level. Imagine the European Union consists of 27 different member states, and the idea is really to get one common level of OT cybersecurity established, and that is the reason why NIS2 was invented. So the companies falling under these topics, they have to handle several tasks, and the first task is really the cyber risk management. That means you are really encouraged to prioritize the risk assessment of your OT infrastructure. So that means you need to regularly review all of your OT systems, you watch out for vulnerabilities, and conduct patch management where required. So the infrastructure scan is necessary really to identify vulnerabilities. That means you do an infrastructure scan, and maybe you update certain components against a vulnerability database. So that is the main task of cyber risk management. The second task is then really the OT control and the monitoring part. And with that, it is really essential to aligning with NIS2 and implementing tailored OT controls to your network. That means in the NIS2, there are recommendations how to secure OT controls, and simply following this rule. And again, we have said it before, the focus is industrial automation only. And the objective, the EU objective, is really to increase the cybersecurity resilience and bring everything to one really common level within the member states. So, and this secures, or ensures is a better word, this ensures a safe and reliable OT control across EU. That means all member countries, they are handling cybersecurity in the same way. There are two more topics besides the OT control and monitoring and the cyber risk management, and these are really incident handling and business continuity. And we are going to discuss this a little bit later. First, don't forget, let's say, the NIS2 directive becomes operational in the member countries in October this year. So with other words, we have less than 100 days to really take corrective action, because it is obligated by October if your company really falls under these regimes. In addition to that, we have some key focus area for the compliance. So user management, we know operator accounts in the past were often handled as shift accounts. That means several individuals could log onto a system with the same credentials and the same username. This is not longer more possible. So individual operator accounts are really required, and the password policy must be updated frequently. And another thing which needs to be done is really to check the remote connections of OT infrastructures. So it is really important that remote connections are secured with multi-factor authentication. So this is one additional point regarding the business continuity and even more recovery capabilities. So a backup system must be in place and used. And you need really a plan. You need to develop a plan how to recover your production if something happens based on these backup and recovery data. And you need really service agreements with automation vendors that outline all processes and responsibilities. And the crucial thing is here really you need access to a vulnerability database of the automation vendor that he guides you where patch management is required. So last but not least, incident handling. That was the last topic I promised to you to explain a little bit later. So it is really important that you understand this NIS2 implementation is not a one-off project. It's nothing like add endpoint protection to certain devices and then everything is secure. This is really an ongoing project. It is not a one-off project, so it's a continuous improvement process. And it requires immediate response really to cyber security incidents if something occurs. So, okay, so far so good, but who is really affected? And that is quite easy to estimate. So first of all, let's start the origin. Where comes NIS2 from? And it comes from the so-called CRITS. And CRITS is a German word for kritische Infrastrukturen. It can be translated into English in critical infrastructures. And CRITs are organizations of major importance for the society. That means if your company deals or established service to many end users or something like that, food and beverage industry, water industry, then most likely you belong to this CRITS group. And companies who are already being classified as CRITS companies, they are automatically affected. That means if you work in an area which is really highly important for the society, then most likely you are already classified as a CRITS company and you're affected by NIS2. But that is not the end of the story, that is the beginning. So that is one option being affected by this directive. So not affected, companies who has less than 50 employees or achieve an annual revenue of less than 10 million are definitely excluded from this kind of directive. So that is the other thing. So if we say, yeah, CRITS companies are included, so smaller companies are excluded. And also affected on top of these CRITS company are companies who are listed in the Annex 1 and the Annex 2 of the NIS2 requirement. And typical example are energy companies, chemical companies, food and water, food companies, freshwater companies. So it is most likely that these kind of companies falling under this NIS2 regimes. And of course, we have to look into a different world. We have different challenges for end users, for system integrator partners, or for automation suppliers. In our conversation today, we are focusing on the challenges for the end users and operators on site. So let's assume you need to comply with the NIS directive because you are classified as a CRITS company or you are listed in the Annex 1 or 2. So you need to provide, let's say, the following evidence or processes in place to cover the reporting obligations of NIST. And what you see here really is the list of possible, let's say, reports and reporting duties you have to cover. And it looks tremendous, but again, a lot of this stuff is already required by different directives we are handling in the automation industry. So let's say if you have a functional safety system, most likely you are using an hazard analysis. Hazard is hazard and operability analysis, and you are evaluating, let's say, the risk assessment with your application. And similar comes here with the risk assessment of cybersecurity incidents. Then a risk treatment plan. This is how to minimize the consequences of the risk. So how is your company individual really treat with the risk? You need a training and awareness plan for the staff, because it is really important to let's say guide and gather people to do the right things. Then you need an incident management procedure. Again, you need overall governance. If an incident happens, you have to have an IT security policy in place. And again, all these things are not really brand new, because many of you comply already to the ISO IEC 27001. And there you have to provide an information security and management system. And you can reuse such documents in the same way that you're really covering all these reporting capabilities here with NIS2. But let's look into the directive as well. It looks a little bit unsexy. You really see the first page of the NIS directive here. But this doesn't help us really, because it's a lot of paperwork. So let's look in a different way to look into this. So the NIS2 directive consists of 9 chapters. These 9 chapters are listed here, and 3 annexes. Remember, we said already in some of these annexes, there are company or sectors listed who are really falling under this directive. So you have to check really the annexes if your company falls under the sector listed there, because then you know you have to comply. And then you should focus really on Chapter 4, because Chapter 4 is the chapter where the risk management and the reporting is clarified. So if you are affected by this directive, check Chapter 4 to get more information regarding the duties of reporting. Okay, and the important timeline and milestones for the NIS directive are summarized here. So again, all started early 23 or late 22, depends a little bit. But the important stuff is really October this year, because in October, all member states convert the directive into local law, and then it becomes really mandatory for the industry. And in April 25, so next year, really the member states establish a list of important entities. So that means they will guide you. Who are you in contact with to cross-check if you are really comply to the directive in the right way. But coming back now to the risk assessment report, because this is maybe the most complex thing in the whole NIS2 directive. And again, we said earlier on, we have to have an active vulnerability management. And again, don't forget, we have now the focus from the operator point of view or the end user. So you have to really to perform a real-time risk management and a systematic assessment of your OT infrastructure. And we recommend this is something like that. We took as an example here the food and beverage industry, and we have, let's say, a dashboard with real-time information. That means, let's say, on one dashboard you see with one view what's happened on site. You see, for example, here the detected assets and supported assets. You see the overall planned risk level. And this is something which guides you really, which guide you to the right things, you to prioritize corrective action and these kind of stuff to really make sure that you are following the directive in the right way. Again, this is only the dashboard that is, for example, the CIO or the chief of automation view. Let's dig a little bit deeper. And first thing is really important, the inventory list. So you have to list and analyze all the inventories in the OT world. And you see, this has to be done frequently because sometimes you have some information regarding the latest update. And what you really need is really the the inventory information regarding the asset name, the IP address of certain assets, and if applicable, in what kind of zone belongs the certain asset here. So then it is easier for you as an automation engineer to really understand the location of all these assets and interpret these kind of view in a better way. The next thing is then really the asset focus itself. So if we say now we want to look on some specific assets, we have something like that. And as example, we are using, let's say here, the brewing example. And if we go into the brewing zone itself, this is here, it's just an example. We see first of all a threat ratio, and this threat ratio indicates how many unsolved threats are in this zone, and is it on risk or not. And again, we find in total 8 assets in the zones, and 5 are with risks, 4 plus 1. And again, the color counting indicates the criticality of the risks in this zone. So that is something where you can really drill down what's happened in my different zones. And if you go one step further, then we really go directly in the zone brewing. Again, we had on the last slide the overall view of the brewing, and now we are going into the assets of the brewing, and we pick up some device here. Again, we had 5 assets in total, and all these 5 assets are listed here. But now we are picking the S7-1200 CPU. This is a Profinet. This is a CPU with a Profinet. It has a dual Profinet interface and onboard IOs. And we know we have to do something. And to dig really deeper, we have to go to the next page. And there we get really the vulnerability description. So this is a description here, what's happened with this specific asset. And what kind of recommendations what kind of recommendations for actions are necessary to overcome, let's say, this vulnerability. Again, this was a very general overview how to handle this risk management. And this is, let's say, I said, simplifying a little bit, simplifying the compliance of NIS2. And the hope is here that you took out some, let's say, strategies or thinking models, how to handle this, how to classify if your company belongs to the NIS2 directive, and if so, what kind of reporting is necessary, what kind of processes are necessary to complying with, and last but not least, a practical approach to the risk management itself. So this brings us to the second topic. And remember, that was the vertical integration. Vertical integration means I have a full digital communication from the top level ERP system up to the shop floor sensor and actor level. So that means the idea is intelligent field devices could provide additional information, and this is really transferred with full digital communication in the field. And that was one of the motivators to invent, let's say, APL. APL is an Ethernet Advanced Physical Layer. It's a two-wire Ethernet topology, which provides, let's say, power supply plus data. So everything is transferred and integrated into two wires. And so this Ethernet APL allows definitely the vertical network convergence, and it allows access to MNO data, and MNO data is maintained and optimization data of field devices. And let's discuss this really on a practical example. Let's switch to here, and I prepared something. Here at the end is our field device. And we are trying to establish connectivity, data connectivity and exchange to the highest level, to the ERP level. So if we try to do something in the past, then we had here maybe at the final end the Profibus PA, or maybe 4 to 20 milliampere with hard communication, but let's keep as an example Profibus PA. Then in the middle area between the remote I/O system and the process automation controller, we have Profibus DP. So, and then on top, the green ones are really the Ethernet layers. So, and if we are trying to use the M&O data, let's say M&O data, and again, this was maintenance and optimization, to really transfer this data to the ERP system to get some guidance regarding the service level of these devices, regarding anything else. So what's necessary? First of all, we have to configure here, and let's say these stars here means we configure something. So we can configure in our remote I/O system, let's say, the field sensor that Profibus PA is recognizing this sensor. Then in our process automation controller, different protocol, Profibus DP now, we have to configure again something. Via the Ethernet network with the OPC server, again, we have to configure this tag, this tag is scanned and established a bidirectional communication, and in the ERP system, we have to use these kind of data. So that means our configuration path is something like this. We have at least 4 different stages where we have to take corrective action to get, let's say, maintenance and optimization data of a certain field device into the ERP layer. And this was a lot of work, a lot of documentation, and since a long time, something which is not really well received from the end users. Let's do the similar scenario for an APL environment. And on the APL environment, we have again, let's say, the APL topology at the end. And this APL topologies is using, for example, Profinet to establish connectivity between the field device and the APL switch. And from the switch onwards, from the APL switch onwards, we can establish, let's say, Ethernet communication, maybe in a ring topology here, to increase the availability. We connect all the other devices to this Ethernet topology and can so really establish relatively easy the communication between the field device. Don't forget, our idea was really to use M&O data and to send M&O data directly from the device to the ERP system. And as you can see, this is really easier to handle here in this APL environment. And that is the reason why this was maybe a very hot topic at the latest process automation show, ACHEMA. And yeah, let's go back to our communication here. So that means if we have such a plant where we have, let's say, the field devices on the bottom, really connected here to the ERP systems on the top, does this really increase the attack surface due to the Ethernet accessibility? Because if we add now many APL devices, they are all visible in the networks, they are all visible with their IP addresses, and every IP address can be attacked. So of course, all these APL devices needs to support certain security features. And we have to be careful, let's say, with really classically designed, with new designed APL devices, so the embedded security should be fine. But legacy devices are maybe lack of security features. So we have to be careful really with these kind of devices. And how is cybersecurity really provided in the APL topology? And it is deeply embedded in the Profinet communication if we use Profinet. And let's discuss two likely scenarios. An attacker really modifies the network communication, and that means the integrity and authentication of the network communication is changed. Somebody is really changing the integrity and trying to get access to certain communication to manipulate something. And this is impossible because this kind of communication is secured by cryptographic methods. And this will definitely not work if you use Profinet as communication protocol. And the second one is really what happens if an attacker manipulates firmware during an update, because from time to time, let's go one time back to our whiteboard here, it happens that we need to patch these kind of field instruments. And if we are going to patch it, so maybe somebody can take control or can get control and manipulates the firmware during the update. And this is impossible as well because Ethernet APL field devices can be updated only if the firmware is signed off by the manufacturer, because the field device itself accepts only signed updates from the supplier itself. If this signature is not the right one, the field device will not accept these kind of patching processes. So thank you very much really for your attention. Thank you very much spending your time here and following our conversation on these important topics. And I'm looking forward to being in contact with you in the future.